This is the House of Hockey podcast,
where we talk about the game and the lifestyle.
We've got opinions as hockey fans, friends, and from the female perspective.
Welcome to our house.
Welcome to the House of Hockey podcast. This is episode 187. I'm one of your hosts, Ray. Breezy's on long-term injured reserve. And joining us today as my co-host is Andy Zilch. He is friend, former guest, former co-host guest, and freelance play-by-play NHL broadcaster, hockey broadcaster, all of the hockeys he
That's
does.
Right.
The ice, the streets, the lakes, the ponds. He does it all.
No,
Welcome
pleasure
back.
to be aboard. Thank you.
Yeah. Okay. We are in the conference final. It's happening. We're right in the middle of it. We've got the New York Rangers up 2-1 against the Florida Panthers at this time, when you're listening to this episode. And the Stars and Oilers are tied at 1-1. They play the night we're recording this, so that obviously will be a different statistic when you're listening to this episode. But you said you are dialed in to watching the conference playoffs, Andy. So dial us up on what you think is going to happen.
Yeah, I was when I sent you that message when you first approached me about doing this. And then yesterday in the middle of the day, I opened up X, formerly Twitter, and it said Rangers up like by 2. And I was like, it's an afternoon game. I was just so auto-programmed to the later start now in the conference finals. And I was like, I was on the road. So I was like, well, by the time I actually sit down, watch the game, whatever. And then one of my friends, he's from Miami. He sent me a text and he's like, Panthers blew it. And I was like, okay, Rangers won. And him and I have a little bet going on with another one of our friends. We pick teams and the winner obviously walks away with a pot of jelly beans, because gambling in some states is still illegal. So my first 2 picks, we did like a snake draft. My first overall pick was Dallas. And then back around on the snake, I actually got the Rangers. So I was pumped. I was like, all right, I hate being the guy that picks the number 1 teams, but I strongly feel like entering the postseason, those 2 teams out of the West and East were going to make it the furthest. Now, you wanted me to dissect the conference finals a little bit. I think the Panthers are doing great. Just stick with it. I mean, I think I saw a stat where they had almost double the shot chances that the Rangers had. And to me, that's very reminiscent to when they played the Hurricanes towards the closing of that series. So the Rangers are finding a way to get it done. All right. That's what good teams do. You find a way to put the puck in the net, regardless of what occurs during the course of the game. You come away with the victory. It's all that matters.
Yep.
And if they win out and they win the Stanley Cup, they found a way to do it. Sometimes they're outplayed. Sometimes you're going to be outplayed. Now, if the Panthers win, the better team walked away with the victory, I feel. So, that's my thought on the Eastern Conference. But the Rangers are getting it done. That, you can't snide them for getting outchanced 2-1 almost, and several times during this postseason. They're putting the puck in the net. It's all that matters.
They are. I mean, they came back from they were down they were down 0-2 in this last game. Came back and won it in overtime. So, like you said, they are doing whatever it takes to get that W and move on to the next round. I mean, there is, as their saying goes, no quit in NY by any means. Like, they really are putting it all out there on the table. Did you see this quirky thing that the Panthers are doing? I love this random stuff that comes out. So as a reminder to the Panther players to not complain to the refs, they taped like photos of the officials onto their bench that say STFU, which means shut the fuck up.
Yeah.
To like not say anything to them, to remind them to just like zip it. This is not the time and the place. Like, do you agree with this? Like, what is the level of amount of complaining you can do to refs in the conference final without it being a detriment to your team?
Well, I feel like you asked me, this is an appropriate person to ask, because through my pro career, when I started in the ECHL and even in the AHL, I actually become friends with officials more than I do players. Like, I don't really care about hanging out with players. It's their world, it's their locker room, all that stuff. But especially in the ECHL, when you move away and you have no one, you're still making new friends in the front office. You hang out with some of the officials, because where I was in Greenville, South Carolina, it's centrally located to the Southern Division at the time. So they would drive to Charleston or drive to Atlanta. Gwinnett would be the team there. So they were centrally located. So they would stay in Greenville, South Carolina. So I started to get to know them by dropping off stat packs and, hey, how's it going? Nice to meet you. And then, I translated to, hey, like, let's go out for dinner. Like, we're both alone in this city.
Right.
I just saw the staff for 12 hours. Like, maybe I want somebody else to hang out with. Officials hate players that are constantly on them, to get to my point. They cannot stand it. So it will be in the back of your mind, if somebody is constantly yapping, you're more susceptible to give them a quick 10 and tell them to shut up and go to the box for 10 minutes. So, for Panthers players, maybe the coach thought, X and Y on my blue line won't shut up. We need to make sure that we don't take a 2-minute or a 10-minute penalty to lose that guy for such an extended period of time. And at the end of the day, this is another cool tidbit for hockey fans. This comes down to the equipment managers who do this. They're the ones that take the tape, they put it down there. And also for the coaches, sometimes during the regular season, and more often than not, they'll get a strip of tape. They'll put number 23, X Francis or whatever his name is. And then for the referees, they'll get like an orange marker and put orange on the tape on each side to make sure the coaches know who's the official and who's the lines person. So, fun little tidbit for those of you listening in that don't know that.
And they just like tape it behind the bench, like on the.
Yeah, so it'll be at the coach's feet. Sometimes like when they're looking down, and generally the equipment managers will do it on each side of the bench, because you have so many guys on the back of the bench, and now women too. You'll look down and you'll see 4 little strips of tape on each side of the bench, and that'll signify who's working the game.
Because if you're gonna yell at the ref, you better, or the linesman, you better know who you're yelling at.
Yeah.
And
it makes sense too, because like you want to call someone by their first name and not be like, hey, you would be like, hey, Donnie, come here. That call, not good.
Right. I'm gonna be like, Jim, Jim, I need a minute with you.
Exactly.
Yeah. Not, hey, excuse me, sir, could you come? Hello, I could use I have a word with you. Thank you. Could you bring me your manager, please? Imagine. That's interesting. Yeah, I think it's a strategy that they have to be careful with. And if that's the reminder that they need, and a little chuckle on the bench for the Panthers players to remember like what it is they're doing, but like also, is that really should that really be their main focus right now? Is like not, or is it meant to just be a little lighthearted and fun and keep that going? It could go either way. It's like, also just, how about defend? How about win? How about no turnovers? How about any of those other things you could suggest? But
I'd say it's probably a little bit of both. Wouldn't you think? Like, probably there's always like, I'll never forget, there was a How I Met Your Mother episode that said like no boogie boarding, and the whole episode was built around that story, and the sign was in a bar. And there's always a sign. There's always a reason why there's a sign, because somebody did something to warrant someone putting up that sign. Same thing here. I guarantee you, out of the 18 guys on the bench, somebody was the one that was like, we need to put that up there.
Right. And that's what they're doing. So here we go. Whatever it takes to keep that team camaraderie alive and everybody working on the same page to try to make it out of the conference final. That's what we got to do. All right, we have to talk Stars Oilers. That series is tied for now as of Monday at whatever the hell time it is. The game hasn't obviously been played. What do you think of this matchup, this series? I see Edmonton struggling And I think the Stars, if they can stick with it and keep sort of fighting like the Rangers are to get those wins, I think they might be okay. If they win tonight, I think they have a good shot at moving forward.
Yeah, I would be shocked if the Oilers do come away with this series. I think the Stars are, and they have been, in my opinion, top to bottom, the most complete team that entered the postseason and still obviously alive. I don't want to take anything away from Edmonton though. Like a lot of people, one thing
Yeah.
that frustrated me is a lot of people were like, "Oh, Dallas is they're just so much deeper." Edmonton actually has a really good forward group, especially acquiring Henrique and Carrick at the deadline from the Ducks. Now, I'm very fashionable when it comes to talking about those two players, having been in the Ducks system for 5 years, and I know Sam Carrick personally. I think he is the pinnacle of a fourth line player in the National Hockey League. So I take a little bit of offense to that. Did I lose you?
Yep, you're back now.
Okay. So I take a little bit of offense to that when people talk down to them about that. I think Edmonton has the makeup of a postseason team. Do they have a makeup of a team that can beat Dallas? That's another thing. Dallas is such a powerhouse. And Ottinger and net, I got to tip the cap to Dallas in terms of goaltending. I have to. Like, to me, that's the deciding factor right there.
Yeah. And in true Connor McDavid fashion, in his post-game interview after game 1, he's like, yeah, sorry for keeping everybody up for 2 overtimes. And, that just, you got to love the humor and the relatability in some of these post-game interviews. And I like to see that from a guy like Connor McDavid, who is on the TNT broadcast, chopping it up with the boys. I can't say enough good things about the TNT broadcasts. I was watching the ESPN game yesterday and the intermission, and I was like, this is just so cringy. All of it is like, it's just feels so forced to me. But anyway, I don't want to keep ranting about that. But either way, I don't think you would have gotten that sort of reaction out of Connor McDavid on ESPN. So I just love what they're doing, and that we get to see his personality come out in a tough game like that.
Well, I'm a huge Connor McDavid fan, and I've said this for 3 years, 4 years now. I mean, hands down, I think he's the best NHL player. Now, I've had some pushback where people are like, well, Crosby's more complete player, and whatever the case may be. I just like McDavid as just too damn good. Like, he's so talented.
He is very talented. It depends on how you're defining what is the best player. Are you looking at stats? Are you looking at Stanley Cups? Are you looking at points? Are you looking at goals? Are you looking at assists? Like what, it just sort of depends on how you're looking at it. But also you could look at it however the fuck you want. You can be like, he's the best in my opinion because he's just the best.
I think he just dominates the game too much. Like, I mean, it's like he's playing NHL 24 and he keeps hitting the speed burst button, and like nobody else has access to that button. It's like it's shut off for everybody else. Like, that's my opinion of Connor McDavid.
Yeah, but I think that's also some of it's his strength and his weakness, because I think it makes it hard for people to play with him sometimes. And I think we see a little bit of that because it's like he's such a force out there and such a powerhouse that it feels like sometimes there isn't enough of a connection between all of his lines. There is the depth and talent, but it's like it's not quite there because sometimes people don't know what to do. Like, it seems like sometimes he's a little unpredictable in that way of like, is he going to just take the puck and go, or is he actually going to pass it to me? Because like he gets he sees red sometimes,
yeah,
and then he like takes over and he's like, I'll just do it. I'll write it and we'll do it live. Like,
I was thinking that.
I'll do it. Like, that's like what happens. And
yeah,
it's good to a degree, of course. Like, that's not necessarily a bad thing, but like, it's a team sport. And I think that's sometimes what happens.
I don't watch the Oilers enough to carry on that comment. So
it's okay.
Unfortunately, Sportsnet isn't an active channel in my house.
No, me neither. Bill O'Reilly with the "I'll write it and we'll do it live." Like
Yeah.
it happens sometimes to Connor, but we'll see how it plays out. Over across the world in Prague, the
Aye, aye, aye.
IIHF World Hockey Championship. The game for gold went to Czechia. How do you say that
I
anymore?
just call them the Czech Republic still,
Isn't it still
or
the Czech
Czechs.
Republic?
I actually think they dropped the Republic, so I just call
Okay,
them Czechs.
the Czechs. Okay, we're gonna go with that. Well, little Mr. David Pastrnak here gets booted out of the NHL playoffs and heads over there to play for his country and ends up getting the game-winning goal basically for the team to win gold. And he's over there just living his best life. They were facing Switzerland, and Pasta broke the scoreless tie with 10 minutes remaining in the third period. Nothing like a little bit of a nail biter. And a bunch of NHL guys were over there playing for their respective teams. You had like Roman Josi was over there as well. But for the Czechs, you had David Kampf, Lukas Dostal,
Lukas.
Lukas.
Lukas Dostal.
It's Lucas.
No, there's a little thingy above the A, I think.
The Czechs. All right, you know a little something about him, don't you?
Yes, yeah. So here I'll backtrack a little bit. Pasta.
Wait,
Talked about him.
aside from how to pronounce Lucas's name as Lukas,
Yes.
you know a little something else.
Yeah. So, well, I mean, let's backtrack. I talked about
Okay.
Pastrnak last time that I was on here, how the guy can elevate teams. And I said he could be a guy who could be a potential captain for the Boston Bruins, maybe. Like, I don't know what happens in the locker room, but, there's a guy again. He's elevating his play, elevating players around him, and they carry on with the victory. And then, in net, I feel like these kind of tournaments bring out names that you generally don't hear of. Lukas Dostal playing in Anaheim. I've called him being a great goaltender now for 4 years. I saw him as a rookie in the American Hockey League in the COVID season. And then I saw him progress as we moved forward. Now he's getting NHL time. And I think he's just another step away from becoming a full-time NHL goaltender that he's going to start catching some eyes. I mean, he's a part of that young Anaheim group where in 3 years they're going to be a playoff team. And I mean, that could even be 2 years away at this point now because they're going to have another high pick again this year. So I think he's going to be that building block for them to compete for a Stanley Cup here in maybe 5-6 years, maybe even 4 years. So that name's going to be very prominent in households coming up here in the future.
He's definitely got some attention this season with the Ducks.
Yeah.
I forget which game it was. He was definitely making headlines. It all starts to blur together. But he's somebody to watch, and it was exciting for him to get that championship, and for all of the rest of the Czechs. I just think that tournament is so fun for hockey fans to be able to see your favorite player maybe play against a royal enemy, but they're on the same country team, and it just adds that element. Like, hopefully we will get to see with the Olympics. I mean, I know it's happening, but anything can happen. But I'm excited. This is just a little teaser, but also Pasta with the dig at the league when he was like, for Czechs for the Four Nations now, because they're doing that Four Nations like tournament next year. And he was like, do you think we should add the Czechs? And I mean, he's not wrong, but I don't think they can go back and change it now.
Right.
So, it was like, bold move, Pasta, to shit on your league a little bit. I mean, I know he meant it to be funny, but I was like, all right, he has no fucks to give here.
And a little pride, a little pride in his team and his country.
Hell yeah, he should. I don't think there was anything wrong with that. But
no.
There we are. I'm a Blackhawks fan. And I went through a really difficult time when Patrick Kane left the team. And I came to terms with it. I accepted it. I was happy with the two teams he'd chosen to play for in New York and in Detroit. And now there's a rumor going around that the Blackhawks might be having an internal discussion about bringing Patrick Kane back. And I am in the camp of like, he's only coming back if you sign a multi-year contract with him. And then he's going to stay and he's going to retire and he doesn't get to leave ever again. None of this 1 year bullshit, not happening. But I'm also like, I kind of don't want you back. I'm like, I've been through enough. The team has taken a completely different direction. They're doing, seemingly so far, they're doing different things differently. None of that core is there anymore. And like, let's just ride out what we have going on instead of bringing back in this person who was such a member of the franchise. Not that I think I would be mad about having him back, but like I said, it needs to be on my terms. Like, you have to be here for.
They need to phone you real quick.
Yeah, I need to approve the deal. Okay, it was like, we can't take this, like, you're going to keep bouncing from team to team to team. Like, the Blackhawks aren't going to be in the playoffs next year. I mean, very doubtful. If we could stay healthy, who knows what we could have done this season. Regardless, though, I don't think it's going to be very soon. So why would Kane want to come back here in the first place? So I'm like, can we just stop with this Patrick Kane stuff? Like, just, can he sign a long-term deal in Detroit, please? Like, let's just leave him there. So I was like a little irritated when I saw that.
Well, I didn't really look up his production this past year. Do you know it off the top of your head?
No, I don't. This isn't a stats podcast, Andy.
You can chime in once you dig it up.
I'm gonna look it up.
So my thought process, and you talked about it a little bit. You said they've kind of gotten away from that culture that he was ingrained in. But do you want to bring that back into your locker room? Do you want to bring back, hey, this is what we did when we won those cups. Hey, this is how you guys need to act off the ice. Hey, Bedard, this is what we need to do. They had Corey Perry in there as one of those guys, and now he's gone because of whatever happened. What do you got?
Yeah, no, like Corey Perry. I don't know. Yeah, I mean, yeah.
So they're looking for a leader again, and is it that guy? And I'm a huge locker room guy. If I was a general manager, I would surround at least 3 or 4 veterans in that locker room. I don't care if they've won or not. If they have a strong pedigree in the National Hockey League as leaders and good locker room guys, that's what you need. You need that around young players. I mean, let's look across the National Hockey League. The Anaheim Ducks are searching for that. They haven't found it yet. They had Gudas. Gudas is a great guy, I've heard. Killorn wasn't that guy in Tampa. So, and he's also missed the beginning of the year. He's been injured this year. So Killorn kind of so. The Ducks need to find more of that to surround those Zegrases, the Cutters now, McTavish and Carlson. Dostal's another one. Columbus, same thing. The Blues, same thing. The Blackhawks, same thing. You need to get guys in there. And for me with the Blues, same boat as you, but with me it's Perron. Should the Blues bring David Perron back again? He knows what it takes to win. He's been with Vegas. He's been with the Blues. He's been all over Pittsburgh too. So I think the Blues should bring Perron back and be like, guys, this is the way we did it when we won, because that Stanley Cup team from 2018 is fizzling. Like, there's not many guys left.
Yeah, but you don't have your coach, though.
But, I mean, you can still have somebody who can bridge the transition from that new coach to, this is how we used to do it. Like, and Perron's smart enough. He's been around so many darn teams. Yeah. He kind of knows how to tread those waters. But he can also help, your Bull Dukes, your Zach Dukes that are coming in, Kyle Tucker. They got some really good young blue liners, too, that Colton Parayko's helping out. But you need more. You need more guys. So for me with the Blackhawks with Patrick Kane, I like it. I really do. But to your point, get him on a long term. I don't think he's going to want to do that, though, because next year isn't going to be a winning year.
No, I don't see him coming back, honestly.
And same thing with Perron, who's also a Red Wing. Maybe Perron and Kane see something with Detroit where maybe 2 more years and we could be contending for a cup if we stick with it here in Detroit. Maybe they don't want to leave.
We don't know. Like we said, it was just a rumor. Kane's stats 20 goals for the season and
So he's still thumping, in my opinion.
27 assists. Yep. 47 points. I mean,
How many
he's
games?
got it. How many what?
Games?
He played 50 games.
Oh yeah, that's a point per game. Perron was not a point per game. I want to say he was like 3/4 of a point per game. He's still going.
Yeah.
Like if I'm Detroit, I'm salivating over bringing these guys back because that's exactly what I'm talking about. You're bringing guys in. Detroit's making that transition with their new players. They got that Swedish defenseman who's unreal, and then they got really good forwards that are coming up too through the pipeline. So for Detroit, you don't want to let those guys go for the reason that I'm talking about.
Yeah. Yeah. I think he should stay there. And I mean, we're stuck with Seth Jones and like some of these contracts we have in Chicago that are just really tough. And the leadership is very much lacking, like you said. Yeah. I wanted to see if you could remember, because I didn't look it up and I should have looked it up. What did we both predict would be in the Stanley Cup final? We had different thoughts a couple episodes ago. I think I said Rangers Stars.
Oh man, I probably would have said Rangers Stars too. But that was the episode where we disagreed on everything but one topic.
Yeah. So we didn't agree, but maybe I didn't say that. Maybe you said that.
I mean, I would have said, if not, I might have said. Sorry.
Would we have said Canes or Florida? Maybe you said Florida. Maybe I said Florida.
I would have said neither of those teams. I definitely would have said Dallas out of the West.
Okay.
I would have said Rangers out of the East, I think. We'll have to go back and look at that. If not Rangers, I would have said Bruins. That would have been my second.
I don't remember what I said. So, and I didn't go look it up, and I'm sure nobody remembers what we said either. Or they do, and they're screaming at us. But I was trying to see, maybe you remembered. But I think either way, we're fairly accurate and or close to, I think, what we predicted. We're in the ballpark. The PWHL first ever Walter Cup final is headed to a must-win Game 5. They did a best-of-5 series. It is between Boston and Minnesota. They are heading to Boston for Game 5 on Wednesday, and your girl is going to the game. I bought tickets. A friend on Instagram who also lives in Boston and likes sports and women's sports was like, yes, let's go. And I bought the tickets yesterday afternoon before the game. And I was like, hopefully if it goes and I've paid for the tickets, they'll refund me, because there was, of course, zero information that would be the case. Like because most people, like in the NHL, you'll pre-buy tickets to all the games, and then if they aren't played, they refund you. There was none of that information online yet at the PWHL, but I was like, whatever, it'll be fine. I'll figure it out. It's worth having the tickets and being able to see history, the first ever final. I'm going to see the Walter Cup be raised. I kind of don't care who wins, because I haven't like totally picked a team. This is going to be insane, and people are all up in arms though, because there was an overturned goal last night on Sunday against Minnesota for goalie interference.
Oh, that again.
Yeah, that again.
Sweet.
And so a lot of people are saying that the call wasn't interference because the player tripped and she couldn't have stopped herself from running into the goalie. And either way, they called the goal back, but Minnesota had already started celebrating like they had won.
Tough.
Which is brutal, right?
Yeah.
Like, could you imagine thinking you've won? I'm talking buckets off, gloves off, tears.
Yeah.
And they're like, wait a minute, we don't know. And they called the goal back, and then Boston went on to win it.
You know, I think hockey-wide, we need to figure out goaltender interference.
Yeah.
It's been an issue in the NHL postseason. It's carried over now to the PWHL, and it's a damn shame. I've always been the kind of person that like holds off the selling until we're like official.
Me too.
So Kachuk, for example, when he's dancing in the neutral zone, now, I get it. There was like 3 seconds left. It would be damn near impossible for
But still.
Boston to score. But like, I'm always the kind of person that's like, let's wait. But back to the point, though, man, goaltender interference needs to be figured out. And I think that's going to be addressed over the offseason of both of these leagues now, because obviously we're coming to a close in the PWHL.
Mm-hmm.
But, like, are we going to go back to skates in the crease? Back in the late 90s? Like, what is it going to take here? Because there's too much gray. And I follow a lot of officials on X. I follow Dave
and they're your
Jackson.
friends.
Yeah. I mean, some of these are NHL, some of these are big dogs. So I do follow Dave Jackson, who's been the is it ESPN or is he TNT? Do you know?
I don't know.
So he's the ref who they go to for that official referee voice. I believe he's on ESPN. And then I know Tim Peel, he lives out of St. Louis. He's another ref. And each one has said there's too much gray zone with goaltender interference. And we're talking both leagues here. We're talking PWHL, NHL, AHL, ECHL, all that. There needs to be more black and white with this because it's too subjective and you're seeing different calls. Like when that one goaltender interference happened, was it Rangers Canes when it could have ended the series?
I don't remember. But
it was one of them. And I even said to myself, I said, there's no way they're going to end a series with this type of a play. And sure enough, they didn't. So they kept playing. And then eventually the team that had the goaltender interference won anyways. But there just needs to be less gray, bottom line.
Yeah, because the problem is then you could fall, trip, look like you've tripped and slide into the goalie on purpose to knock them out of position for your teammate to score or attempt to let your teammate score, right? That can become a strategy. And that's not something that I think either league wants to allow. So therefore they have to call that goal back, whether it was an intentional fall into the goalie or not. If they're interfered with and the goalie is out of position because somebody took them out of position, then you have to call it. I think you have to call it.
And flip side, goaltenders can milk it. The biggest thing at the end of the day that irritates me about all of this is defensemen's recklessness for their own goaltenders' positioning. Like, I understand if there's a guy in your crease and you want to clear the path or you're battling for positioning, but there's far too many times in any hockey level where a defenseman knocks another player into their goaltender, and that's where all of this occurs.
Right.
If I'm the NHL or if I'm just hockey in general, if you push a player into your goaltender, your fault. It's a goal. That's on you. I hate seeing that.
Yeah, but how do you call that? Like, how do you make that call, though?
I mean, as soon as there's contact into a goaltender from another player, I mean, to me, that's more black and white. Okay. Like the goal that was called, I wish I could remember who it was. I want to say it was Florida. Might have been Florida Boston. Because I remember the name Lomberg, but that might have been recently. So anyways, the goaltender got knocked off positioning because his defenseman knocked a player into him. So, whatever. We've said this many times. It's not our pay level.
No. But I'm just really excited that I get to witness a little bit of history. I mean,
yes. Back to that point. It's really cool. I envy you for being able to witness that. Cool. Keep your ticket.
Yes.
But wait, it's not a paper ticket though anymore, is it?
No.
Like digital. That's the thing. Like back in the day when tickets were hard copy, I'd keep them all.
I know. I have some from it fell down, but I have like the hard tickets from conference finals, I think, with Blackhawks and Ducks. So
screenshot. I guess that's the thing nowadays.
Right. And then send it to CVS Photo to have it printed out.
There you go. Well, okay. So I know you don't have a horse in the race, but who do you think is going to win this?
Gosh, I don't know. I really think either team can take it. I mean, Minnesota's come back from, they entered the playoffs on a losing streak and they've managed, did I say Minnesota? Yeah,
You did.
Minnesota. And they've come back to be on a winning streak, except for last night, which ended it, or well, whatever, since this round of the playoffs. But Boston has been fighting and they've been strong all playoffs. And there's a lot of grit on that team, and the goaltending is unreal for Boston. So it could really go either way. I mean, last night's game was 0-0. So it's a tough matchup between both teams. But what I love most, and I don't know that I don't watch enough of the pregame content, but the storyline of Kendall Coyne Schofield playing against Hillary Knight. I mean, they're like of the same years and they're of the same caliber, and like just having those two facing each other in the final. Obviously, there's a ton of other really talented. Taylor Heisey, who plays for Minnesota, she's the star draft pick.
She was the first overall, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, having that on Minnesota too, like there's just so many great stories happening and storylines that either way, to me, it's like a win for the sport. And the tickets were, you'll love this, $56 with taxes and fees. And I'm sitting 10 rows up from the ice, across from the bench, like the perfect seats you would ever want, but they play in a small arena here in Boston. I'm actually really surprised they didn't try to take this or couldn't get into TD Garden now that the Bruins are eliminated. I really thought they were going to, maybe they did try to make that happen, but man,
they probably took the ice up. TD Garden was probably, because for the PWHL to carry this over there, they would have had to have taken the bill for the ice. And
they did it in Mini. Mini is playing at XL, and
but that was their original home rink, though, right?
Yes.
Yeah. So I think TD Garden was probably like, "Here's the bill," and they're probably like, "All right, we were already paying for this arena. Why should we double dues?"
Well, if you fill the seats, you can maybe meet your profit and loss statement there, but I don't know. It's okay. I'm stoked, and I'm excited to see what can happen and watch a little bit of history. So I'll have a lot to talk about next week.
Can't wait.
Do you have a hunk or a lady of the week?
Come back to me. I'll go second. I always try to go into these cold and then generate an idea.
I'm gonna give it to Pastrnak. I gotta give it to the man. He's just so goddamn happy and was like so happy to be over there to play for his team and contribute in a big way and bring his country a gold medal. So I gotta give it to, I like Pasta. I think he's funny and I love his relationship with his coach and just the whole thing. So
oh man, like I should have thought about this one, because I'm trying to think of like an unsung hero to go with. And I want to...
Matt Rempe, Jiminy Crickets?
No, not that unsung. Well, I want to think like behind the bench too, and like coaches. Mm-hmm. Let's go with the 4 coaches that are 10. Can I do a 4-way tie?
Sure.
Because like the coaches that are still like employed by their teams, like Cooper...
there's only like 6.
There's only 4 coaches that have been with their team for more than like 2.5 years.
Mm-hmm.
And like the Utah coach now, Cooper's there, Jared Bednar, and I don't know who the 4th is, but there's only 4 coaches.
I'm like going through the teams. It's not this team. It's not that team.
No, not Nash.
Oh,
Sullivan in Pittsburgh.
Sullivan.
So those are my 4-way tie, because the NHL carousel is getting a little ridiculous here with coaching staffs.
Yeah, there's been even more of that. So we won't go into that today.
My next one, I have a hunch for who my next one will be.
Who?
But I don't want to say it because it might not happen yet. So I want to wait for the chips to fall, because it's supposed to fall.
But don't you want to be on the record?
Well, but I already picked my 4.
No, I mean, you mean there's going to be another coach who leaves his
Well,
team?
no, this actually isn't going to be a coach. So the rumor mill with Don leaving Carolina is going to Columbus to be not only the GM but the president of hockey operations, which would mean John Davidson is either going to be an advisor or he's just going to call it a career. And I don't know John Davidson, but like I was around when he was with the Blues, and he's a hell of a person, hell of a presence. Like when he walks in the room, like everybody pays attention. He's also a large man too. Like I think he's 6'2", 6'3". He was a goaltender, played for the Blues back in the day. So if he does end up retiring, he will get my nod the next time that I'm on this.
All right.
Yeah.
To be continued. Thank you, Andy.
You're welcome. Thank you.
Thanks for coming over to our House of Hockey podcast and hanging out with us. We'll be back next week with a brand new episode. And in the meantime, you can follow us on social media. Just look for House of Hockey podcast. We'll be back next week.